passion, inspiration, determination. Are you ready to jump into a better life? Welcome to our to Jump Into It, a podcast and live show to help entrepreneurial-minded women jump into a better life. Thank you for joining us on this podcast. We're going to be talking about a very important component that every business needs to invest in, and that is marketing. We, Anita and I, who have been hosting Jump Into It for a while, wanted to delve into marketing, a field that we're both have been in for over 20 years. We want to talk about our journey, our personal life, and how we've gotten there, what's inspired us, some of our challenges, obstacles, and ultimately the book that we just launched that we're very proud of. So first of all, let me introduce Anita. Anita, thank you for joining me again. A loyal comrade in all of our great Jump Into podcasts where we've interviewed so many remarkable women. And Anita, I want to say that I include you in that circle of remarkable women as part of our Jump Into It entrepreneurs.
I feel the same way. Thank you, Gabrielle. Happy to be here, of course, and talking about a passionate topic of mine always is marketing and communication, and specifically how we can bring forward some integrated marketing ideas and strategies to new businesses or businesses looking to grow. So I'm looking forward to the discussion tonight.
Fantastic. And you know, how did we get there? I mean, we both are very passionate about marketing. We've been doing it for over 20 years. It's been our lifeline. It's been our livelihood. And it's really helped us grow personally and professionally. And I thought, let's take a step back and look at our journey of how we've gotten to become professional marketers. I mean, there's many people, young people that aspire to it, business owners, entrepreneurs that struggle with defining it, how it can work for their business. So I thought this is a really impactful conversation to have and meaningful for everyone that touches businesses is to know the marketing. And then for those that want to get intimately involved and understand what a marketer is and how they become a marketer, this is a great conversation to be had and to listen to. So Anita, let's start with you. And if you can tell about your journey in becoming a marketer, what's inspired you and some challenges and obstacles along the way.
Lots of good questions. Thank you. Well, I started my journey quite a few years ago. I'm going to say over 20. And I think what brought me to my marketing career was probably my desire or my creative instincts. I think as a young child, I was in that creativity field. I was known to be the chatterbox and really always liked to communicate and have fun with my friends. And so I think when I got into my older years and education wise, I started gravitating more towards marketing and business, and went to college and took some international business, which was really interesting. And then I think I landed at my first job almost a little bit by fluke. You know, sometimes you just throw a cast net, and I started at a advertising agency, which you're very familiar with because that's how far we go back. And it was a little agency in Toronto called Padulo Direct. And I started there as an account executive. And I will say that probably changed the course of, my life, because I started working in direct marketing, which at the time was very new. Nobody really knew what direct marketing was. It was really about targeting a customer, putting a message in front of them. And in those days, it was a lot about the post, right? Mail going out the door. And who did that really well was banks. Financial marketers is what we are today. And they really took direct marketing to ultimate levels. And I know you can talk a little bit more about that, because that's really the path you took, was that data marketing path forward. And I took a bit more, I leaned a bit more towards the branding and communications piece of it. So what I find interesting for both of us, and you can talk to this as well, is I think we really have a holistic view of the infrastructure and the framework that it takes to put marketing strategies out there from both lenses. So I do the marketing, branding, and communications, and you're really focused on the data strategy piece and the digital opportunities. And so those two pieces coming together, I think, was the beauty and the inspiration for our book. Really was that 360 approach. It's no surprise that's your company, your digital company's name. But it really does make sense, because as marketers and as businesses looking to reach their end audience, they really also need to be considering the 360 approach. And that's where I think both you and I shine.
Can you share with our listeners some of the products that you had marketed or brands that you've built, and maybe a preference of which ones you really enjoyed building, and those ones that maybe some successes you've had and some things that you might have wanted to do differently?
Oh, wow. That's a mouthful, but certainly financial marketing starts a lot with the products that a bank has. And that could range anywhere from a deposit account to a Visa card to a mortgage to a line of credit. And I had the extreme, opportunity at the time, working for two of the largest banks in Canada, to work on all of the product lines for the most part. So I spent a lot of time working on mortgages, and I actually left the financial institution and I went to a large mortgage insurer, and there my opportunity to grow was even more than just branding. I actually got into a lot of public relations and thought leadership strategies, commissioning research. And so I certainly thought that path for me was more in line with who I was, because I find myself a jack of all trades. I can dabble in everything and then have a pretty good understanding. And so that's how I basically formed the majority of my career, was taking on things that I never really did before, learning it and then mastering it, and then bringing that back to businesses. And I think where I really enjoyed, part of my career was actually in the last few years, leaving some of the big corporate world behind and moving into helping small businesses, small to medium-sized businesses grow. And there's a real opportunity there, not only from a learning standpoint as a marketer, but for working with an organization that needs to put their infrastructure in place and their technology, and then their go-to-market strategies. That's certainly where I shine, is in that the build of the department, of the strategies, the long-term growth plans. And I think some of my favorite, I enjoyed my time working with you, because, as you know, I came and spent a year. I came back to an advertising agency or marketing agency 20 years later. And I certainly liked the little bit of more flexibility and freedom in going after the segments we wanted to in service. And we really, I think, worked on a lot of neat clients, from health and wellness. And I mean, we worked with a death doula. We worked with service providers. Like, we have worked with single entrepreneurs, and we have worked for, 1,000 people companies. So we certainly have the ability to either scale as needed or pare back and just be available from a coaching and guidance standpoint, giving people the cues to move along in the spectrum of what they're comfortable with from an advertising and marketing perspective.
Yeah. And it's been really enjoyable working with you, Anita, too, because you injected some fresh ideas, as well as opening up and how we can serve the client from beginning to end, right from the strategy right through to delivering those digital persuasion sequences, building that online presence, right to those CRM ecosystems. So, our clients have really prospered from that holistic view and adding those different elements and layers. And what I love about our book, we'll go into a little bit more, is it really layers in those fundamentals and then what needs to, all the considerations and all those measurements that need to go into it, and the power of integration throughout. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And so you were asking me as well about my personal story.
Yes, I certainly was, because I know it's good, it's different from mine, and I think it's worth sharing your experiences.
Thank you. Thank you. I've always had a passion for business and marketing. I mean, in my earlier years, I was doing modeling, and there I was selling clothing. So, and then I was doing consulting work for small businesses. But first, I found that the fundamentals was to get a formal education in marketing. Now, I'm not saying that all marketers need to have that formal education, but understanding the basics and how business works, and how the financial side of business works, understanding the numbers and understanding measurement is where marketers today are more effective, layering in also the technology. So marketing has changed so much from just blasting out messages across billboards and TV commercials to now it's very segmented. The measurement, the messaging, the integration of the different channels all can be measured in a very effective way. So going back to my personal journey, what had inspired me to get into marketing? I've always had a passion for business and an innate ability to understand business and its workings. And I think my formal education in business major marketing has really helped to build the fundamentals of business. But marketing, like business, the only way you really can prove yourself that you're good at it is actually through going out and getting the experience and showing your successes. Nobody's going to hire somebody that has a PhD in marketing that has never generated revenue.
Yeah,
So that is
that would make sense.
right. That makes sense. I think Fidel Sassoon said it's the balance between street smarts and formal education is what makes a really great marketer. So having said that, building on those fundamentals, finding out where is growth in marketing. And at the time, like you were saying, Anita, was direct marketing. And direct marketing, really the fundamentals around that is the right message at the right time to the right audience. And now with so many different channels, it's also the right channel. So, and with the technology today and the ability to deliver and streamline, and now with a layer of AI, we're able to do this so effectively in an almost scary manipulative way that some people are kind of feeling that they're losing the reins and the power of what marketing is doing to our society. There's a lot of people that sit on the fence about the power. Where there's great power becomes great responsibility. And I think in marketing that holds true as well. In our book, we talk a lot about your mission, your vision, your values. And in Jump Into It, we talk a lot about finding the purpose in what you do and finding meaning in it. We are very passionate about what we do, but also taking it back to feeling good about what we do in the services and the products that we actually market. And Anita and I had followed a similar pathway in the sense that we both worked at the same agency. We both ended up working at the same bank at different times. And so it's interesting how our careers were parallel, but then based on our own skill set and our own innate talents, we ventured off into different areas of expertise, which only allowed us to come back together and be a more powerful, impactful team. And that's really something. And I think that's all part of the business and partnership is find people that complement you and where in your strength and that you can trust and you have the same values. So I'm very happy to have Anita as my comrade in the professional way, and also it's a lifetime friendship as well. So so thank you, girl. Virtual hug.
Well, thank you. But I'm picking up on what you said about inspiration and enjoying what you do. And I think about being asked by people, in my younger years, oh, how do you like, marketing bank products? I mean, they're kind of dry. And what's interesting, when I spent my decade or so working in mortgage insurance, I always would say it's about the home ownership. So mortgage insurance, for those that don't know, it's about helping home buyers get into their home with a little less down payment because they're protected through this mortgage insurance. I have spent so many years writing about financial education, the importance of understanding, your credit scores and your financial capabilities of taking on a mortgage. So I was selling home ownership and the dream of home ownership, and that resonates with so many people. It resonated with me. I was, younger at the time and going into my first homes. And so, putting together campaigns that, brought people together to talk about their dreams of home ownership, and helping people understand how they can make that possible, how they can attain that. And so that was inspirational to me. There's some connection that you're putting with that product that helps them solve a problem. It's always about finding those pain points, so that way when you're crafting your messages and you're creating your brand, you're understanding what the audience wants, you're understanding their needs. And funny, you mentioned about nowadays with AI, there's so much more data, and in a scary way. But if you think back in those early banking days, however many decades ago, and never mind 50 years ago, they were still so sophisticated. The amount of data that a bank has on their customer is a little obscene, but they have it. And that's where we learned about database marketing and mining your data. And your best customer is the customer you have, not always about getting the new customer, because retention and cross sell were equally as important as acquiring a new customer. And we spent a lot of time in business case scenarios. If we do this and we go to this customer, you can come out and make this much money at the end of a year. So it was a very financially driven, putting together the strategies and the metrics to bring something to the market.
Yeah, I mean, the groundwork that we did, and it was groundwork at the time at RBC, they were the first ones to really build out the segmentation and life cycle and predictive modeling. And they are actually in our Harvard Business Review as a case on how successful a bank was in doing that. So we were at the ground level and sitting around the boardroom table, figuring out how do we build out marketing plans. And the first one was the first time home buyer with mortgages. We already were able to identify those that were at this stage ready to buy a mortgage. It would be based on their income, their regular deposits to their bank account, their credit score rating, their age. They, other identifiers, if they had family, recent marriage. All of those elements came in to be able to figure out the probability that they would be soon ready, and then educating them on the ease of home ownership. So they were at the forefront, as you said, building on the data and then the predictive modeling. Now today, Google is built on the algorithms, very much the fundamentals of what RBC or banks were doing at that time. So it's just the data is now cheaper. Technology is cheaper. So what big businesses were spending millions of dollars on now can be done at a fraction of cost for SME. And after working for about almost 20 years in corporate life for the biggest brands in Canada, and I was very fortunate to have the learning background in doing that, in the structure, the discipline, the processes, the controls, the sense of order of marketing, was to turn around and say, okay, now we can do all those things on a smaller scale, and we can do it for small SMEs, small, medium enterprises, and enable them with all the big we're doing. We can now do at a small scale at a much lower cost, but just as effective. So the little guys were able to look big, now on the internet. And so when I wanted to move away from being corporate to have the freedom to be able to raise my son, to be there for him and not work the crazy long hours and coming home late, I made that choice, and that was the right choice for me. It was the right decision for my soul to be able to further explore it. Becoming an entrepreneur challenges you in so many levels that there are not the boundaries. Nobody is telling you how you have to behave. Nobody's giving you a scorecard anymore. You're giving yourself the scorecard. Nobody's giving you that bonus and telling you to work within a certain framework. You have to define that framework. So it's a little bit scary in the way that
Absolutely.
you don't know when the next paycheck's going to come.
You have to be a little risk,
profitable.
Right? Risk open. You have to be a little bit not adverse to the risk, right? Because you're putting yourself on the line when you go into that entrepreneurial path. You don't have that regular paycheck. You have to hustle, and that keeps you fresh. That keeps you learning all the time, because you're not if you're sitting around, you're not making money. You reminded me as you were talking. I thought I'm going to throw it out because it's so funny to think back at the time, you and I, early 2000s, when online banking was first launched. Now it's a click of a button, but if you remember at the time, we partnered with the big company, and again, it's escaping my name, but they had the CDs and they were all over Union Station when we launched. So like we were literally carpeting the Union Station, with all those CDs, and that's how you logged in, and that's how you got into your online banking in those days. And we were responsible. You were on my team at the time. We launched the first ever online banking, and that was in a time where there was much more to it to get in on the internet. It was much earlier days.
Well, if we were to talk that partnership cost the RBC a lot of money to build it. But what was interesting is that the Canadians were more tech savvy than the Americans, and that partnership was not as fruitful as they had hoped, because Canadians already had gone to high speed internet, where AOL was still slow speed broadband. Exactly. So it was, I remember I mailed like 10 million CDs in 1 year.
The Union Station.
And the segmentation of that was, we found out that the people that bought them were the older generation of people, like people that were 55 to 60. They're the ones that purchased the AOL. The younger generation already had moved to high speed. So that was an example of where technology moved faster than we had anticipated in the marketplace, and it became outdated faster than our user experience, what we wanted to deliver to our customers. It was no longer valued because the technology was outdated. That was a really good example of, always testing the market, figuring out who your audience is, figuring out their needs, and then making sure, because it keeps changing, right? The sense of what people want today changes tomorrow, and how people are buying today is very different than the way that they bought 10 years ago. And COVID has also changed our behavior even more, building relationships and buying. So, and I think that's the biggest challenge of marketers. If you want to be a great marketer, you always have to be curious. You always have to challenge the status quo, and you always have to look ahead, be a visionary on where the market's going in order to be successful. If you stand back on your laurels, and I've met a lot of marketers in my day, I'm not a young sweet thing anymore. I've watched a lot of marketers become very outdated, and then they're scrambling, happening so fast. If you don't stay up to date and you're unemployed for a year, you could be out of the market and never be able to get back in if you don't keep your skills up to date.
Yeah, I agree. And I was in that position, as you know, with many years working for an organization. I jumped and I when to start up. I don't regret it in the health and wellness space, and I helped a company, go global into Europe, did a lot of things I would never have done, staying at my long tenured job where you spend 12 years. And uh, quite frankly, that's just too long to spend anywhere as a marketer. And, I know people don't have it as much anymore, spending their entire career, who spent their entire career to one organization. But moving for me was in my soul. I knew after a certain amount of time that I just needed to go and learn something different. That's the shackles of the corporate marketing. You start getting comfortable, you work your way up, title wise, and then you make more money. And so, it becomes all too comfortable. And that's reflective sometimes in teams as well, that they become too comfortable, or they're too overstaffed. And then some people are sitting there just, doodling the day because they're not as busy as maybe the person next door who's probably, got way too many things. So sometimes the workload is imbalanced. But, it's either here nor there. Helping small businesses and the desire that I had pushed me out the door. The company went gangbusters and then all of a sudden had to shrink back. And I found myself for the first time in my career without a job. And that's a scary place to be. And as you said, as you get further up the ladder, those jobs become less easy to get because they're in high demand and there's more people looking at the same types of roles. And then it's really based on your qualification. The fact that you and I connected and you gave me the opportunity to come and explore my business development side, my more of my creative side. I started writing more. I had spent my whole career writing for a brand, somebody else's brand, which was great. But then it was time for me to write as my voice, not as the voice of the brand. So I think I found a lot out about myself in that time. And I'm glad that we still collaborate because it allows us to be creative. And, back in the day, creative was a bad word in my mind. When you were seen as creative, that meant you might not have been as strategic, which is totally not the case. I've learned that now.
Well, you're creatively strategic.
Strategic,
being strategic, inherently, you're creative.
I think so. And you know what? Now they talk a lot about without having creativity, you're really not, fully embracing all, facets of, of a strategy. You're not staying within the box. A lot of times
knowledge becomes outdated, but creativity always stays fresh.
And that's right. That is absolutely right.
I think Einstein has some terminology, some saying around that as well. About, it's better to have somebody on your team that's creative than somebody that's just knowledgeable.
Well, I wish I would have known that 20 years ago, because I think I could have stood up for myself a bit better. But as a younger person, once you're pegged in a certain light, I fought that stigma. You're creative. I was like, I'm smart, I'm strategic, I'm not creative. And then the fact is I'm creative. So, it's like, oh, well, I guess I am. Once that shift happened in my mind, I embraced so many other things that, like, hey, we're here doing a podcast. We've written a book. You and I have joked so many times how we do it all. Like, we just know we can, if we don't know, we're going to learn it, and we're not going to be afraid if it takes us a few hours to figure something out. And I think the book is a perfect example of us coming together and bringing both our knowledge. I mean, you did the heavy lifting throughout the years because you had been writing blogs and putting educational pieces out there for quite some time. And then I just came in and helped you bring it all together. Then we started writing more together, which inspired us. We can't just talk about business strategy and marketing strategy. We've got to talk about the sales funnel. And then we got to talk about thought leadership. And then it continued from there. I mean, we did call our book at one time the 50 ways, and there was more than 50 ways to market.
Generate leads. It's 50 ways to fill your sales funnel. I wanted to also add was that not to limit to the understanding that it's just marketing experience in the financial sector. Anita and I have our experience way beyond that. I mean, after I left the bank, which I also, to your point, was I started to feel, am I a banker or am I a marketer? And I said, no, I'm a marketer. And back then, banks were very hesitant to really embrace the digital space. And I knew that if I wasn't moving forward where the market and where buyers were going, I was going to become outdated. So moving from banks to SaaS company and HR software to telecommunications, our homes, mobile, internet marketing. Also, I worked for Vonage, which was a VoIP service, as well as Rogers Communications, and then back into doing lines of credit or marketing for small businesses on a global scale before launching my business. And then launching the business, then now I'm doing property restoration services, professional services, e-commerce, vitamins.
Well, you helped me
cream.
when I was in my role at
Right.
at
Yeah.
that had 3 brands on Amazon, and look at that time we spent there. I mean, we learned everything you needed to know about marketing on Amazon, and some of that learning is Amazon's a beast, right? It took us out of our comfort a little bit, right? We were doing retail,
it did.
Yeah, and again, Amazon has different ways to use its platform. And that's interestingly how a lot of the platforms work. They have their own algorithms, their own way to ensure that, they're making money from you from a marketing standpoint. And, and it's the same type of rules that you see on Google from an SEO and, ranking and, reviews play a big part. And that's just in the last 3-4 years that all this learning, all these different things, all the pieces.
I never think I know all the pieces. Never do I.
So true.
And I did marketed for a two-sided marketplace, which is very similar to Amazon, but only theirs was events, bringing looking for events with people that had events and matching them up, building the SEO around that and the positioning and the branding and the title and the product service offerings and the pricing. So it's never ending. It's only limited to your imagination on how you're able to package the products and services and how to send the message out to the right channel. So it goes back to the fundamentals. The right message to the right person at the right time to the right channels. And how do you deliver it? It keeps changing, but the fundamentals don't. And so that's the beauty of really being a strong marketer, is taking the fundamentals and then figuring out where the market keeps changing. So our needs don't change, but how we fulfill them don't. I think is a great way into our book, which is Jump Into Breakthru Marketing Guide. Anita, what would you say for someone that is considering this book over any of the marketing guides out there?
Well, I think the two of us writing it and bringing our expertise together is unique. And, unique because of the varied backgrounds that we just, talked about. But what I think is most important is that it's real. It's a real guide, and it prompts you along the way to really be thinking about each stage of the process. And that's right from the start as you think about, your product, your business strategy. We jumped into, you need your business strategy, and you should ask yourself these types of questions. And we move into marketing strategy, and it's a series of walking you through questions and making you sit down and think. Anybody who's entrepreneurial, starting a new business or growing a business, knows that there's no steps to be skipped in those early days. Your competitive analysis, you talked about unique value proposition, vision, mission, values. Those set the stage. Those create the trust in your company. investing in your brand and how your brand looks and your messaging around who you are is really what is going to make a customer fall in love with you. Think about it as a relationship. When you have a favorite brand, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens over time. And the businesses have to woo the customers nowadays. There's so much noise in the marketplace. So what we do is we provide actionable tactics. We start with strategies, and that's business and marketing strategies, and we walk through the various ways to bring integrated marketing to life, through various channels, and that's through thought leadership. Of course, it's inclusive of social media and influencers. Nowadays, there's just so many ways to go out and reach your end audience, but it typically is restricted by who's doing things well. It's no surprise the banks are number one in Canada. They make a lot of money and they spend a lot of money on marketing. Marketing is a very integral piece of what they do. As a small entrepreneur, your dollars are tight. We get that. I think the other piece of it is we've laid it out in the books. You have options. You find what works for you, and you might just start with your website redesign, a logo, vision, mission, values, and maybe you're going to pick one channel on social and start building your community. And that is how you're going to start. You're going to focus on that. And then maybe you're going to find a list and, start picking up the phone and calling. I mean, it's basic stuff, but then the basic stuff turns into these bigger strategies that, then require a CRM system, because now you've got 100 or 200 people that you want to tell something to. Well, it's not happening in an Excel spreadsheet. That's not the way you're going to track it. Then you're going to have to think about your platform. How are you going to send an email? Well, you don't want to just send it, a plain old text email. You want to put a nice picture on it or include a video. So those things, all those nice outward things that showcase brand, are all a strategy and a tactic that are figured out before it comes to life. That is what I think the book does. It provides all the opportunities. I can't say we extensively covered 301, but I know we definitely covered, as you said, over 50, 60 ways to start putting your brand out there. And I think that is the most important reason why our guide will separate out from the others.
And thank you, Anita. And how you present the key reasons why is truly coming from the voice of somebody that knows brand and brand development. Where I would layer on and say it's also about getting the end result, which is the sale. And so the book does marry the brand, the voice, the consistency, building the credibility, building that relationship, but it's also about building the persuasion sequence. How right now we know that 80 to 90% searches on products and services start on a search engine, that they are searching for solutions to solving their problem, or finding a location to a restaurant or a dentist, or researching a television or a SaaS product. So if having that online presence and being able to say, well, what are the steps? What's the buying journey from the initiation of, hey, I need this, or a consideration, to actually turning around and say, I'm going to pick your product or service and buy it. And either I'm going to buy it through an e-commerce site, or I'm going to pick up the phone, or I'm going to go to a bricks and mortar and to buy it. And the layering of the brand does that, but also what the book talks about is all the multiple channels and the sequences of the different steps. As we know, it takes about 7 touch points before somebody will say yes to a product or service. Mm-hmm. And we know that there are so many different channels in which you can potentially communicate and reach your buyer. So what is the most cost-effective sequence of channels that you can leverage? And maybe, it's 90% on your website. Maybe it's like Anita said, you just master once. It could be search engine marketing, or it could be Facebook. And then once they get to your site, what are the different layers that you are pulling them in? Is it through chat? Is it through a downloading of some content? Is it through watching a video? What kind of content they're consuming in order to move them from a awareness to consideration, which is the top of the sales funnel, which is demand, right down to purchasing the product or turning into a qualified lead for sales to follow up and close on. So this book does a fantastic job of layering the two into it, which is really brand is considered an asset on your balance sheet, but sales determines if your business is going to be scalable and profitable. So it's mirroring the two different elements of marketing to become a really powerhouse book. It meets the promise of fulfilling your vision through quick wins and long-term success.
Well said. Well said. And it's now on Amazon. And as you mentioned, you just spent the last 2-3 weeks working on it to put it on Audible. We know that was a new and interesting experience on its own. As we've said before, we've, self-published now 2 or 3 books between the two of us. We put books on Audible. We figured out the platforms. We figured out the audio restrictions. I mean, there's, and that's the thing for new businesses and entrepreneurs is that, you have to try new things in order to know. If we could leave one piece of advice is that sometimes hiring the professional, and there's a misnomer that a professional, you have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get to your end state. And we know that's not true. We take things in manageable bites. We can take on something big, but we can also, build a strategy, implement, and get some learning, and then, tweak the strategy and, build some more. You can't underestimate what the expertise and the experts bring to the table. You can't, find 40 years that you didn't have. And that's what we're bringing is that 40 years of knowledge working for big and small organizations. I'm now at a company doing membership growth and building a women's community around the world. That's different than what I did 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I was back in the mortgage insurance company selling home ownership, and now selling women empowerment. And that's fed nicely into the work we do together too, because we believe that it's important to empower entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs specifically. Our learning doesn't stop, and we're not pigeonholed to say, oh, we just do that. We just do marketing for financial. We've done, as we said, health and wellness, event companies, HR. And so I don't think you'll find two people like us. I think we're pretty unique, Gabriella. So we should say we are unique, right? Our perspectives
to work with. There's a term out there that maybe not everybody is familiar with, and that's called fractional. Is it called fractional? It's called fractional team, fractional marketing team.
Yeah.
We're complementing your core competencies in your business so you can hand off the key to someone else to do your marketing, so you can focus on building the core elements of your business. We either serve as your chief marketing officer or different aspects of your team, or cultivate and train your team so that you can empower them, and then we hand the keys off to you so that you can run the marketing team internally, or continue to have a balance between the outsourcing of some marketing and keeping some in-house. Allows you the flexibility to grow quickly and have the expertise on hand and on demand.
Well, then you're getting double, and with us, you're getting double the brilliant minds, right? When you hire one CMO, you're hiring one CMO, but when you're hiring a fractional CMO, you're getting 2 for the price of 1.5. More importantly, you're
getting a stronger powerhouse.
Thinkers,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yes. Those entrepreneurs, business owners, and marketers, aspiring marketers, or those that are well established, consider the gift of jump into it. Ready to jump into it and turn your vision into reality? Get the Jump Into It Breakthru Marketing Guide, now available on Amazon, ebook, paperbook, or as an audiobook on your favorite platform. It's the perfect resource or gift for anyone ready to ignite fast wins and lasting success. Don't wait. Make your move now.